Hi everyone, my name is Margaret, and in this video I'm going to show you how to crochet a classic granny square, and I'll have a chart and the written pattern up on screen if you'd like to print out your own version of the chart. I got it from thisiscrochet.com. I'll have a link up here somewhere as well as in the description below. For materials today, I'm using a worsted weight, also known as a medium weight, also known as a weight number 4, 100% cotton yarn, and a 4mm crochet hook, which is also called a size G. For granny squares, I usually like to go down onto the smaller side or even slightly below what's recommended on the yarn label for the hook size, so the stitches will be a little bit more dense and it will look a little bit neater. Let's get started. For round number 1, our instructions say to do 4 chain stitches and then 1 slip stitch into the first slip stitch to make a ring. So if you already know how to do the magic ring or magic circle technique, you could totally substitute that in. But for today's demo, I'm going to do the little chain 4 ring. So to get started, go ahead and do those 4 chain stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then to do that 1 slip stitch to close, what you're going to do is take that very first chain that you made, bring it around so it lines up with the top of your hook like this, so it makes a little U shape. And then I'm going to try to put the hook through both loops of that first chain stitch here. And that can be a little fiddly, so you can definitely use your fingers or fingernails to help that along. So once you've done that, it should look like this. And then you can make sure that the tail is out of the way, complete your slip stitch. So a slip stitch, once you've inserted your hook where you're going to attach it, you'll just yarn over once and pull that through everything that's on your hook. So through the stitch and through the working loop. So at this point, you should have a little ring or a little donut of your 4 chain stitches. And if you can't see the middle, you should be able to kind of zhuzh it a little bit to open it up like that. So that is round 1 completed. And at this point, if you are doing the chain 4 ring version, I'd highly recommend taking a stitch marker and placing it into the middle of that whole ring. So you're not attaching it to the loops of any specific chain stitch. You're going right through the middle like that. So that will make it a little bit easier for you to find the center as we do the first couple of stitches in round number 2. So if you've done it correctly, you should kind of be able to rotate it around like this. So it's not connected to a specific chain stitch. So the first step for round number 2 is to do 3 chain stitches. So we'll just go right out from the ring, 1, 2, and 3. And these 3 chain stitches, we're going to consider that to be the first stitch, specifically the first double crochet stitch in this round. And to help us keep track of where we are, we're going to put a stitch marker in the top of our first completed stitch. So in this case, the stitch marker is going to go into the 3rd chain stitch that we just made. So I always like to try to put it through both loops of the top of that stitch. So go ahead and close that off. After those 3 chain stitches, we need to do another 2 chain stitches. So this time, instead of being considered part of stitch number 1, this is just stitches number 2 and 3 in this round. And basically these will let us start kind of hanging around the corner here. And after that, we're going to do 3 double crochet stitches, and we need to go into the center of this ring. So instead of sticking our hook into one of these chain stitches, so both loops are 1 loop, we're going to go right into the middle here where we have our stitch marker. And we're going to do a double crochet stitch. So before we go in, we're going to yarn over first. So now I'm going to go into the center of the ring and make sure you're not working into the stitch marker. And next we're going to yarn over and pull all the way back through the ring. So it's just like you're doing a regular double crochet stitch, except for instead of attaching it to a specific stitch in the previous round or previous row, you're attaching it to this whole ring or little donut here. So at this point, you should have 3 loops on your hook. So go ahead and finish your double crochet stitch by doing a yarn over, pulling through the first 2 loops, doing another yarn over and pulling through the next 2. So when you finish, it should look like this. You've got your chain 3, your 1, 2 chain stitches, and your first of the 3 double crochets. So let's go ahead and finish up that instruction. So we need 2 more. So yarn over. Again, you're going to go into the center of this ring, yarn over, pull up a loop all the way back through the ring, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 again. So that's our second one. And then let's do the third one. Yarn over, go into the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that was our 3 double crochet stitches, and they're all attached to the ring that we created in round number 1. So from here, we're going to do another 2 chain stitches. So let's do those, 1 and 2. So now we have kind of 1 cluster of double crochet stitches and another 2 chains. So our instructions say we need to do that 3 times total. So we finished it once. We're going to do that 2 more times, and we're always going to keep working into the center of this ring. So it's going to get kind of crowded. So to give ourselves more space, what you can do is with one hand, hold on to some of the chains on the ring itself. And then with your other hand, you can kind of hold the base of your double crochet stitches and sort of peel them apart like this. And you should be able to scoot your double crochet stitches closer together so you've got more space. So let's do that one more time. So again, we're still going in right into the center where we have our stitch marker here. So 3 double crochet stitches. 1, 2, and 3. So that was 3 double crochet stitches, and then 2 more chain stitches like that. And I think at this point, the stitch marker to show the center is getting more in the way than it is helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and take mine out. I'm going to leave that stitch marker I put in the top of our first stitch in there. So that was 2 of the 3 repeats. So we have 2 of our little clusters here. So let's do the third one. So 3 double crochet stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Follow that with the 2 chain stitches. 1, 2. And now we are done with our 3 repeats of the instructions there. And for the 4th little group of double crochet stitches, instead of doing 3, we're just going to do 2 double crochet stitches, because to make our group of 3, we've already got 1 from where we started. So again, if you need to make a little more space, go ahead and peel your stitches back away from the ring and do 1 and 2 double crochet stitches. So here we're almost done. Next, we're going to do 1 slip stitch to join into the first stitch. So we're going to make a slip stitch right here where we have our stitch marker. So I'll go ahead and take that out. And if you are worried that you might forget where it was right as soon as you take it out, what I like to do is hold the chain kind of right underneath where I was going to go in before I slide it out. So that way, when I set up again, I can see it was right here. Switch to holding the chain on the other side. And then that way I can work my my slip stitch. So no yarn over for this one. You're gonna go right into both loops on the top of that chain stitch, yarn over, pull through the chain stitch and your working loop. So that was the slip stitch that will join everything up. And you're basically done with your first round, but we do have one more instruction. So it says to do a slip stitch into the corner chain space. So chain spaces are exactly what they sound like. They're just the spaces or the gaps underneath anywhere you have chain stitches in a round or in a row. So to do our slip stitch into that chain space, we'll insert our hook right through the whole chain space. So we're not going into like a specific stitch, just the whole space, just like how we went into the middle of the ring. Then we'll yarn over and pull through everything on the hook. So we'll pull back through the chain space and through our working loop. So what that does is it will move the hook over just a little bit. So we're going to start our next round right from the middle of the corner. If you did want to change colors here, I still like to do that extra slip stitch because I find it makes it a little bit more stable. But if you're going to change colors, I would say that this part is optional. So I'm going to show you first how to continue if we're just following our pattern exactly without doing any color changes, but after that, I'll go ahead and show how to start it using a standing double crochet stitch instead of that chain 3, which is what I would recommend doing if you're gonna switch colors for every round. So if we take a look at round 3, just at a sort of higher level, not at the individual stitches, we can see from the chart that what we're doing is placing 2 of these groups of double crochet stitches into each of these corner chain spaces. So in total, instead of 4 groups, we're going to end up with 8 groups. So 2 in each corner, and those are all going to be separated by either 1 chain if we're on the side of the square, or 2 chains if we're going around a corner. So to start off, it's going to be exactly the same thing as our previous round. So round 3, we'll start off with another 3 chain stitches. 1, 2, 3, and again, because this is going to count as our first stitch in the round, and to make it easier for us to confirm we're going into the right chain, I'm going to put a stitch marker into the top of that 3rd chain stitch like this. And then next I'm going to do the 2 chain stitches and the next group of 3 double crochet stitches. So for this one, we want to make sure we're going into the same chain space that we just came out of. So that's this one right here, closest to us. So I'll do 3 double crochet stitches. And again, just like when we were going into the center of the ring, you're not attaching to like a specific loop of the chain. You're going into that whole gap and pulling your loop up all the way back through. So when you pull up, you do want to make sure you go all the way past that previous round like this. You don't want to stay down here, but you also don't want to pull up super high like this because that will make the base of your double crochet stitches kind of loose and it won't look as neat. So let's do the 3 double crochet stitches. So that's 1, 2, and 3. and we want to make sure we're always going into this chain space right here. So make sure that after you've made the first one, you don't start working into this new corner that you've created. For this round, we're always working into the spaces in the previous one. So that was our 3 double crochet stitches. So next we're at the side. So we were going to do just 1 chain stitch. And after that, we need to do 3 more double crochet stitches, but instead of going into the same chain space, we're going to find the next chain space right here, and we're going to attach all 3 of those into this corner. So go ahead and turn your piece around and do your 3 double crochet stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And since we're at a corner, instead of doing 1 chain stitch to separate it, we're going to do 2 chain stitches, so that way there's more space when we do our following round. So 1, 2 chain stitches. So now we're finished with our first side of the square. We can start our next side here. So we're going to repeat everything in the brackets again if you're following along with the written instructions. So for that, we're doing 3 double crochet stitches into the same chain space. So these 3 we just put into here, this corner. So our next 3, same chain space, so we're going to continue attaching them right there. So let's do those. 1, 2, and 3. So that means we now have 2 of these double crochet groups going into our corner space. So after those 3 stitches, we're going to do just 1 chain stitch again, because we're on the side, we're not on the corner. So we'll do 1 chain. And then to finish up this side, we're going to do 3 double crochet stitches into the next chain space. So right here, so we just worked into here. So the next chain stitch, if we follow the direction we're working, is right here. So let's do our 3 double crochet stitches into there. So 1, 2, and 3. All right, so now we're at that next corner. So before we start our next group of double crochet stitches, we're going to do 2 chains. So 1, 2, 2 chain stitches. So that's our second side of the square. So now you should be on the kind of opposite corner from where your stitch marker was. And we'll do all of that a 3rd time. So this is our 3rd repeat of the instructions in the brackets there. So next we're doing our 3 double crochet stitches again into the same chain space that we just went into. So 1, 2, and 3. So now we have these 2 groups of double crochet stitches into our corner there. After this group, we're going to do 1 chain stitch because we're on the side of our square here. So 1 chain stitch. And then we're going to follow that with 3 double crochet stitches into not the same chain space, but the next chain space. So right here. So let's do our next 3. 1, 2, and 3. And let's finish off this side with the 2 chain stitches. So if you're following along, you should now have 1, 2, 3 sides of round 3. So that's the second layer of our little double crochet clusters. And for the fourth side, it's going to be again slightly different because instead of doing 3 double crochet stitches when we get back here to the starting corner, we're just going to do 2 because we've already done one of those 3 when we started right here. So we're now past the kind of repeat instructions in the brackets, but for our next step, we're going to do 3 double crochet stitches into the same chain space right here. So 1, 2, and 3. All right, so now this corner, we're finished. We've got our 2 groups of double crochets in there. And before we work into the next one, we're going to do our 1 chain stitch. And then now into the next chain space, which is also the original one that we started working out from. So the starting corner chain space, we're going to work 2 double crochet stitches. So you're going to work all the way around this slip stitch right here. So 1 and 2. So we are now at the step where we're going to join this round. So we're going to finish off with our 1 slip stitch into that top of the chain 3 right here. So go ahead and take that stitch marker out and work your slip stitch into both loops. If it's really tight or you're just having trouble, you can do this through just one of the loops, but I find it's a little bit more secure if you can go through 2 loops like that. So once your hook is in, to do the slip stitch, you'll yarn over, pull through the chain, and pull through your working loop. So that will join this round. And to finish it, we're going to scoot our hook over to the middle of the corner with 1 more slip stitch into the corner chain space right here. So insert the hook, yarn over, pull back through the chain space, and pull through the working loop. So if you're working just one color, it should look something like this. And it is normal, like depending on the hook and yarn combo that you're using, if you're doing this like chain 3 start, that the first little group might look a little bit thinner than the other one. So if that's the case, it's fine if you're just practicing here, but you may need to play around with the hook size that you're using for the particular yarn to find one that kind of lets this expand a little bit more. Or you can look into different types of standing stitches in order to make this chain 3 double crochet look more similar to all your like true double crochet stitches. So that's how that round goes if you are working continuously with the same yarn. So either you want your granny square to be all one color, or maybe you're using one of those like multicolor yarns and you're just letting that do its thing. But before we go on to the next round, I'm going to show you what you can do in order to switch colors. So for that, I'll pull back my example here. So I'm right at the end of round 2. So here we are back at the end of our second round. And at this point, if you did want to switch colors, what you'll do is leave a couple of inches of tail. Just make sure that you have plenty so that when you are sewing the ends in, you'll have an easier time. Go ahead and cut that and pull the tail all the way through so that working loop is finished. So from here, you can go ahead and pick up your new color. So let's see, I think I'll use, I have this blue color, and You can just join it with a slip stitch here in that same corner and follow the instructions the same way with doing your chain 3 to start and then chain 2 over. But if you're going to be changing colors anyway, I like to start with a standing double crochet stitch. So there's a couple of different ways to do standing double crochet stitches, but today I'll show you this one. So start off with your slip knot right here and put the hook in. And what we're going to do is we're going to do that first yarn over starting here. So you'll need to use your index finger on the hook hand to keep this from rotating around, and then go ahead and do 1 yarn over, and now go into that starting chain space, so the same one that you left off at, yarn over and pull through like this. And this whole time you want to keep your index finger on that working loop so it doesn't twist around. And then you'll finish that double crochet stitch with a yarn over to pull through 2 and yarn over, pull through 2. So this part can be a little fiddly, so just do whatever you need to do to hold everything steady. So there you have a regular double crochet stitch attached to the corner. And if you don't like how this slip knot looks, you can do it just with a yarn over first, and you should be able to complete the stitch, but it will be a little bit less stable until you come back around. So if you're just starting off, I would recommend doing the slip knot version, but if you want to see what that looks like without the slip knot, what I usually do is, so I'll hold the tail out like this, I'll put the hook on top of that yarn, and then bring the hook down and towards me, and then away. So there's that first twist, and then this is going to be the working loop. So then the whole time here, I'm going to keep a nice grip on there, and everything else will be the same. So yarn over, go into that chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop for the 3 loops there, and then yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So here you can see there's the top of our standing double crochet stitch. And again, I would put in a stitch marker there. So if you did this style, same thing, you'll look for wherever the working loop is kind of sprouting out from, and your stitch marker should end up in the top of that standing double crochet stitch. So from there, you would follow the instructions exactly the same way as you did for the same color version. So you've done your first double crochet stitch, except for we've replaced that 3 chain stitches with a standing double crochet stitch. So after that, you can do your 2 chain stitches and follow that up with the 3 double crochet stitches into that same chain space. So there's our first group right here, 1 chain stitch, and then 3 double crochet stitches into the next space, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish redoing this round, and I'll meet you back at the end. All right, so I've redone round 3. So at this point, I'm about to do that last slip stitch to join the round. So I did want to show this part a little bit closer, because if you did the standing stitch method where you did not do a complete slip stitch, You just want to be careful that you're picking up the 2 loops on the top of that double crochet and not the chain stitch here. So the way I like to do it is I'll check that's 1, 2. Those were the chain stitches in the corner. So right here is where I'm going to insert the hook. So if you need to, you can kind of like pick that out a little bit with a tapestry needle or even the hook that you're using before you go in for the slip stitch, just so it's a little bit clearer. So go ahead, go through those 2 loops like this. Make sure you've still got the 2 chain stitches there on the corner and finish off that slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through everything and do that last slip stitch into the corner chain space just to secure everything. So here we are at the end of round 3, and this is what it would look like if you switched colors. So again, if you are doing just the same color, or maybe, you know, you're doing a bigger one and you're doing like 2 rounds of the same color before switching, you'll just follow the instructions exactly as they're written for round 4. So you would start again with your 3 chain stitches for your first double crochet stitch, and you would put the stitch marker right at the top of that chain 3, and then you would continue around the corner in the same way that you did all your previous rounds. So 2 more chain stitches, and then start working your first group of the double crochet stitches right into this same corner. And again, for especially this first one, you want to be careful because when you do that next chain stitch, you do create a new space here. So just make sure you're always working into that round below. So what that would look like with the same colors, that was 1 of 3. So 2 stitches and 3 stitches, and you would continue all the way around following the instructions. But I'll show one more time how to do that color change. So if you're doing a new color, after that slip stitch into the corner chain space, you'll cut your yarn. Remember to leave a tail that's long enough that you can comfortably weave in the ends. And go ahead and pull that tail all the way through the working loop. So your finished round will look like this. So go ahead and take your other color. So I'll go back to that first one here. So I'm just doing a 2-color granny square. You can of course use as many colors as you'd like. And if I can find the end, here we go. All right. So for this one, I'll show the method with just the regular slip stitch. So make your slip stitch and put the hook in. Find your starting corner chain space right here and put your finger on that working loop to make sure it doesn't spin around. So that way you'll do your yarn over, go into that chain space, yarn over, pull back through to have your 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2 again. So here, that's my first double crochet stitch, and I scooted it back there so we're giving ourselves a little bit more space. And you can go ahead and put a stitch marker into the top right there. That will be a lot easier to see than the previous version. So into the top like this. If you're looking at it from the side, you should see you're right on the top of the little post there. So let's get all this sorted out. It's kind of a lot of tails. Okay, there we go. So we're always going in the same direction. So every time you start, you should make sure that the front side is what you're looking at, not the back side. So the back side has more of those little vertical loops there, and you can see that little extra horizontal loop underneath. So let's continue. So last round, round 4. So we've done our first double crochet stitch. So if you were doing one color, this would have been your 3 chain stitches. So we'll do the 2 chain stitches for the corner and start our first pass through the repeat section. So we're going to do this first side. So 3 double crochet stitches into the same chain space. So 1, 2, 3. So after that we have 1 chain stitch. So just 1, because again we only do the 2 chain stitches when we're at the corners. And then we're going to do 3 double crochet stitches into the next chain space. So right here, if we just follow along, this is the next chain space right here on the side, not the corner, because this is the very next one. So we'll do 3 double crochet stitches into there. So 1, 2, and 3. So there's our 3 double crochet stitches. Follow that up with 1 chain stitch, because we're still on the side of the square. And our 3 double crochet stitches coming up will go into not the same chain space, but the next chain space right here on the corner. So let's hang a turn here and do our 1, 2, and 3 double crochet stitches, followed by our 2 chain stitches, since we're now in the corner and we're about to start the next side. So that's our first repeat through the brackets. So let's go ahead and do that 2 more times to finish the other 2 sides. So next pass, so we're doing 3 double crochet stitches again into the same chain space that we just worked into. So 1, 2, 3. All right, so now we've got our 2 double crochet clusters right in this corner here. That's what keeps it as a square shape. If you just did 1, this would end up becoming more rounded. So after those, we're going to do 1 chain stitch and follow that up with 3 more double crochet stitches into the next chain space. So now we're working here into the side. So let's do our 1, 2, and 3 double crochet stitches. Follow that with the 1 chain stitch and finish off this side with the 3 double crochet stitches into the next chain space right here. So we're going into the next corner. So 1, 2, and 3. I feel like the count from Sesame Street. 3 double crochets, ha ha ha. And to finish this off, we'll end with 2 chain stitches. So that's our second side here. So now we're 2 times through the repeat instructions. So now we're on pass number 3. So we'll do this side. So back to the beginning there, 3 double crochet stitches into that same chain space. So we're going to do the second one into this corner. So 1, 2, 3. All right, looking good. We'll have our 1 chain stitch before we do our next group, and the next group of 3 we're going to do into the next chain space. So now we're in the middle of the side here. So 1, 2, and 3. All right, and that's followed with 1 chain stitch, and this side will end on the next corner, so our next chain space. And let's do the 3 double crochet stitches into there, and end with the 2 chain stitches since we are in the middle of the corner. So that was our 3 repeats of the instructions in the bracket. So we've done 3 sides of this round. So for round 4, again, it's going to be just a little bit different here at the end, because instead of doing 3 new double crochets, we're just going to do 2, since we have that last one there will form the 3rd one in that group. So now we're past the instructions in the brackets, and we'll do 3 double crochet stitches into that same chain space, so into the same corner. So 1, 2, and 3. Follow that with 1 chain stitch, and then 3 double crochet stitches into the next chain space. So 1, 2, and 3. After that, we'll do 1 chain stitch. We're still on the sides, so remember you separate them with 1 chain stitch when you're on the sides and 2 when you're at the corners. So now we're back around. Let's kind of tighten this last slip stitch up so that we can cover it up with our next 2. So we'll do our 2 double crochet stitches right into that starting corner chain space. So 1, work all the way around that slip stitch, and 2. All right, so we're now finished with all the main stitches in this round, and it's time to join it to the beginning. So here you've marked your first stitch at the top with that stitch marker. So go ahead and place your slip stitch right in there. So these are a little bit thicker, so I do like to take them out before making the stitch. Here, because I did a full slip knot before starting, it's a little bit easier to see. But again, just make sure that the one that you're going into still has 2 full chain stitches before the start of that next double crochet. So this was the top of the double crochet stitch. And then we have 1, 2 chain stitches, and then this is going to be where we're going to join. So go ahead, go through both loops of that stitch, yarn over, and pull through everything to join that up. And let's go ahead and finish off with another slip stitch into the corner. So it doesn't say that, I think, in the instructions, but I like to do that even if I'm not going to do any extra borders or anything, because if you are going to sew them together, if you're all the way at the corner, what you can do is leave a nice long tail. I think usually 4 times the length is safe if you're doing mattress stitch plus a little extra, and then you can just use the tail itself to sew it together. But for now, I'm going to just cut this off. So leave enough space to comfortably sew the ends in, and I'll pull that all the way through. So here is the completed granny square, and if you wanted to keep going, you can sort of follow that same pattern where every time you're at the corner, you're going to put 2 of these double crochet clusters in. I think they're also referred to sometimes as granny stitch clusters. And then anytime you're on a space that's on the side, you would just put 1. So you can keep going that way. If you do make a much larger granny square, it is usually a good idea to turn your work after each round. So I'll show you one time how that looks like. But basically this time we've always been working each round in the same direction, always looking at the same side of the square. Basically, for the turned version, it's exactly what it sounds like. Before you attach your new color, you would just flip the square over so that you're looking at the back side of the row you just finished. And then you would follow the instructions exactly the same way, just starting from the opposite side. So for that, you would do your standing stitch if you're changing colors, and just follow the instructions the same way. So that would be our first one, and then you'd do the 2, and you'd continue working in this direction, but it'll look a little bit different because you're looking at the back side instead of the front side of the round that you just completed. And you can kind of see this starting a little bit here. Usually this isn't necessary if you're only doing like 3, maybe 4 rounds of the double crochet clusters, but you can see it's sort of starting to twist a little bit. So if you make a really big granny square with lots of rounds, it won't end up being square. It will be a little bit skewed. So that's just something to look out for. But if you like how it looks this way, that's usually not necessary if you're just doing a smaller one like this. And one nice touch that you can do, so either if you're leaving it by itself, maybe you're doing a little coaster or something, or even if you're going to crochet or sew them together, a lot of times I think it's nice to add one last round of single crochet stitches, just to make a little bit of a border. So if you'd like to do that, you can take your next color, and at any corner, I usually do a slip stitch to attach it right into the corner chain space like that. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through. So that will sort of attach it first, and then start with 1 chain stitch. And into the corner, instead of doing 2 single crochets, I'll usually do 3, but I leave the last one for the end, so I'll just do 2 here going forwards. So single crochet stitch, so pull up a loop and pull through 2 loops, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops, and then just work 1 single crochet stitch into the top of each stitch going around. I usually like to go through both loops like that of the top. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then when I get to the chain space, instead of working like into the chain stitch like that, I usually just go around it. So I'll work my single crochet stitch into the chain space like that. And then when you get to the next double crochet stitches, work into the tops of the stitches like normal. So you can do that going all the way around, and it'll add a little bit of structure to it. I also think if you're sewing it, it's a little bit easier to sew if you're trying to line up those single crochet stitches instead of the double crochet stitches and the chains. So here I've reached a corner that has sort of the slip stitches to join. So I've already done my 1, 2, 3 here. So I'll do 3 single crochet stitches right into the corner. If you want yours to be even more like crisp or pointy at the corners, you can do either a 4th stitch, or you can do an extra chain stitch. So do 2, do a chain stitch, and then do 2 more. So you have a total of 5 stitches in the corner like that. So that will be more square. I usually just like to do 3, so the corner is a little bit softer. So 1, 2, 3. And now just follow it along the next side. So tops of the next double crochet stitches into the chain space, next 3 double crochet stitches, chain space, 3 double crochet stitches, so working directly into the tops there. And then now I'm at the corner, so I'm doing 3, but again, depending on how pointy you want to make the corner, you can add a 4th chain or a 4th single crochet stitch, or do 2 single crochet stitches, 1 chain, and then 2 single crochet stitches to make it really crisp. But I'll just do my usual 3 right here. So that's 3 single crochet stitches to turn the corner. And now we're back on that last side. So I'll go ahead and finish this up and meet you at the end. All right, so I'm almost finished here. So I've worked 3 single crochet stitches into the top of this last double crochet cluster. And I'm now going to make my last single crochet stitch back here into the starting corner chain space. And to finish off, I usually will cut the yarn here. Again, if you're going to use the tail to sew it with like mattress stitch or whip stitch, make sure you leave enough tail for that. I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter here, and then I will pull that up. And to make this finish nice and neat, I will do kind of an invisible finish. So for that, I will thread the tail into my tapestry needle, and then I'm going to find the next single crochet stitch here. So I'll go in from the front to the back underneath the 2 loops like that, pull that tight, and then I'll go back into that the top of the stitch that I just came out of here. So I'm going to turn it around so it's a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to go right into here. So this is the one I just came out of. I'm going to go into the middle of that stitch and also back through down here and pull that through. So on the top, it will look nice and clean and seamless. So that's usually what I do. It does kind of add an extra stitch, which I don't mind if this is the finished round, but if you wanted to keep the number the same, what you can do instead of going into the next single crochet stitch. So this one here was the top of the first one in the corner. This was the top of the second one. This is the top of the third one. You can go, instead of through the second one, go through the third one. So basically you'll skip 1 stitch, but again, going from the front to the back under both loops. And then same thing, pull it a little bit snug, and then you're going to go back in to the middle of the last single crochet stitch that you made here. So I usually like to flip it over, find the center, and then go through here. And then because you skipped one, you won't create that extra loop. So you can pull that a little bit snug. And that's how you can do a nice invisible finish on your granny square. That works for any sort of single crochet border or any other stitch really that's worked in rounds. So there you have it. And this is the back side. We have all of our tails. So if you want to clean this up, you can just take your tapestry needle, thread that in. And what I usually do is I'll try to keep it originally on the same color, and I'll also weave it in on the back side. So I'll just go through any old stitch that's nearby, kind of bring it up to the top of the stitches here, and then I'll kind of weave it in along the top edges of the stitches until I get underneath the next layer. So under here, I can't really show it very well, but I'm going to try to go through the inside of one of the green stitches here. It doesn't have to be neat because again, you'll cover it up, but just through there. And then let's do one more. So again, you're going to keep the tapestry needle under the next color, pull it through, and then from here, I'll just cut it pretty close. You can always leave like a little bit extra, like 1/2 centimeter or 1 centimeter if you're going to be like sewing stuff together or blocking, because a lot of times this will kind of work its way back in. And then right at the very end of your project, you can cut everything nice and short, but I usually leave a little bit extra. So same thing for everything else. Just take the tapestry needle, thread that tail in, and sort of sew it in starting on the same color, and then go maybe up or down one level of stitches. Until you feel it's secure. And then I usually wait to cut the tail until I'm underneath one of the clusters of a new color. So here, let's go in to that next loop, and then one more right underneath all of this. It doesn't have to be super exact, just kind of feel around until you can feel that you've picked up a loop in there. Pull it through, kind of zhuzh it a little bit to pull it back, and then cut the tail short. So just like that. You can also sort of just crochet directly over the ends there, but I feel like it's a little bit more secure if you're weaving it in after the fact. But it also depends on how grippy or how toothy the yarn you're using is. So you would do that for all of the tails to kind of neaten everything up, and that would be your finished granny square. And for this style, again, we started with that 4 chain stitches joined to make a ring. That will leave a little bit of a hole. I don't think it looks bad since, you know, the whole thing is more of an open stitchwork type of pattern, but if you did want to close that all the way, you'll want to start with a magic ring or magic circle technique. I have a whole separate video on that, which I'll link somewhere here. But in that one, I do show it with the 6 single crochet stitches into the ring. So real quick before we go, I'll just do a demo where I start round 2 directly after that magic ring. So I'll start with the tail in front of my hand. I'll take that tail, loop it once around my index finger so that the working yarn starts in front. I go around once and behind, and then I'll pull out some extra length if I need it there. And then now I'm going to wrap it around twice around my next 2 fingers. So these 2 loops are going to form my magic ring, because I like to do the type that has the 2 loops instead of 1 loop because I find it's more secure. And then from here, you're going to kind of join these together with a slip stitch. So you'll take your hook, go through both of those loops here, bring the hook up to the top of your finger, yarn over with this little bit of yarn here, twist the hook so it faces down so that you can pull through without it falling off. Keep it nice and close, don't pull this one up really far. And once you come through, you should have your working loop. You can yarn over one more time and pull that through to secure everything. So once you have that slip stitch with the hand that you're holding your hook with, go ahead and pinch that stitch and slide your other hand out. So that is your magic circle or magic ring. And if you're doing this version, instead of working into that little donut of the 4 chain stitches, you'll just attach everything that is in our round 2 of instructions directly into that magic ring. So if you're doing the 3 chain stitches to start, so that slip stitch we just did, I don't count that as a stitch, so we'll do 3 more in addition. So 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to put in your stitch marker onto the top of that 3rd chain to mark the beginning of the round. And then make sure those loops are tidy and continue on so you can follow the instructions just as written. But before you do the slip stitch to join, you do want to close the ring. So I'll go ahead and work through that here. If you want a little bit more in-depth explanation of what's going on with how to close this double loop magic ring, definitely check out that other video. But I'll just show it here real quick because sometimes it does help to see it with the actual pattern you're doing. So I'll meet you at the end there. All right, so at this point, I have finished all of the main stitches in this round. So I have my 1, 2, 3 groups of 3 double crochet stitches. And then my last group of 3, I have the 2 regular ones over here. And then the 3rd one is that chain 3 that I started with. But since it's really far apart, I'm going to have to close the ring first before I do that slip stitch. So to do that, I will pull up that working loop a little bit bigger and take the hook out. And I usually like to hold it so that all of the stitches are on the bottom and then the start is over here alongside the tail with the working loop over on the other side. So here you should see that there's kind of those 2 loops that were forming the ring. To give ourselves a little bit more space, I'm going to scoot everything back. So for that, I'm going to pinch the ring. So those 2 loops right here with one hand, and then slide all of these guys back. So that'll make the loops a little bit bigger. And then our first step, we want to figure out which of these 2 loops is connected to the tail. So I'm holding onto the little tube that the stitches have formed down here with one hand, and with the other hand I'll pull on the tail until we can see which of these 2 loops will start shrinking. So in this case, this loop here in the front is the one that's shrinking, so it's connected to the tail. So it's connected over here, so we'll follow it back to the other side, pull that one up so this loop gets bigger, and that back loop will shrink up. And then for this one, you can go ahead and pull it like mostly tight like this. So there's no visible loop there, but the center doesn't have to be closed yet. So now you've got this one big loop left, and you can close that by pulling on the tail. So again, I'm holding on to all my double crochet stitches here, and then I'll just slowly pull that. If you see it's a little wrapped up here, you can feel free to pull that out, but shouldn't really make too much of a difference. So keep pulling until that's mostly closed like this. And then here you can go ahead and finish up those slip stitches. So 1 slip stitch into that 3rd chain to join, and 1 slip stitch into the corner. And this is usually when I would go ahead and pull everything super tight. So hold on and then just keep pulling on the tail until the center completely closes. And when you're sewing this in, if you want, you can, instead of going up one of the stitches, you can kind of hide it by pulling it through that center ring one more time. But if you did want to completely close the center, you do want to use that magic ring or magic loop technique. And especially for granny squares, since there's so many stitches going into the center, I would recommend doing this version where you have the 2 loops instead of the 1 loop, just so it doesn't loosen up again. But yeah, so that is how I would have ended up with this one right here. So I have my color changes. I have my magic ring or magic circle to start, so the center is closed. And then I have the little border. So those were all just little tweaks that you can do if you wanted to do a little bit of a neater version. But the basic instructions should be fine if you're just doing one color. A lot of times if I'm doing multicolored granny squares, I will just use a multicolored yarn to start with because I don't like to sew in all the ends. But yeah, hope that was helpful. If you did think that was helpful or entertaining or relaxing, go ahead and give this video a like, and I will see you in the next one.